This is Yusuf from Crafting Clouds, and in today's video, we're going to be going over an important method customization concept called linked fields. So let's begin. Right now, we're on Methods Help Center article on linked fields, and let's start off by first reading their definition of what a linked field is. A linked field is a field that displays the value of a field in another table which has been established via a dropdown. So this definition can be confusing. So what I'm going to do to explain how you should understand what a linked field is I'm going to be using a live example. So let's go into our estimate in Method. So right now we're on the estimate that I have here for Dodger Inc., a fake customer of mine. And what I'm going to do, as you can see on the right here, I have 4 custom fields that I created. So I have access person first name, access person last name, access person email, and access info. Now, I want to be able to see all this information when I generate an invoice off of this estimate. I want to be able to view this information from within the invoice without going back to the estimate. So if I go and I click create invoice, as you can see, everything else shows up, right? But my custom fields that I've created on the estimate do not show up here within the invoice because now we're on a different transaction. But I want to see the related estimate info that I've created. So how do you do that? Naturally, what someone would do without understanding the concept of linked fields is they would go into their tables and fields. So let me go back into account settings. We're going to go into tables and fields. Now, this is an area as a method customizer you're going to be very, very familiar with because this is the area that you're going to create all your custom fields in. So we're going to go and we're going to look up the invoice. Actually, let's start off with estimate because I want to show you the custom fields I've already created on the estimate, right? So as you can see here, I have the access person email, access person first name, access person last name, access person phone, and access info. All these custom fields are here. Now, naturally, what you would do is you would go to now, because you want to see it on your invoice, you would go to your invoice table, right? And right away, you would create these fields again on your invoice table, right? But this is no bueno. This is not the way you should be doing it because now you're creating extra work for yourself. And because you're unfamiliar with how linked fields work, you're going ahead and you're doing all this extra work when you can really just leverage linked fields. So how you would create a linked field or how you leverage linked fields in this scenario and what it does is you're creating a dropdown on the estimate table that is going to be related to the estimate. That's it, just one field. When you do that, you're going to populate that dropdown that you created on the invoice table with the estimate's record ID. When you do that, you're now creating a relationship between the estimate and the invoice. So when we go on the invoice table and you click new fields, you're going to go to field type, you're going to click drop down, and then you're going to search for the estimate table. And you're going to choose estimate record ID, and you're going to call this estimate record ID. Now, if I save this, is not going to work because this already exists. Okay, this relationship is already set up by Method out of the box. So really, a good first step is before you even create that dropdown on the table that you want to see the related information on, you want to first check on that table if that dropdown is already there. So we're going to go back to the invoice table and we're just going to search estimate. And as you can see, Method already has 2 relationship fields that they've created on the invoice table that most likely is automatically populating with the estimate record ID through their logic that they've set up. So we don't have to create this dropdown. We can just leverage this existing dropdown to get that custom field information that we want to see on the invoice. So with that being said, when we go back now to our invoice screen, right? As I said, you want to be able to see those custom fields that I showed you earlier show up here. Okay, so I'm just going behind the scenes. This is the screen designer. For those of you who customize a method, this is also an area that you're going to become very familiar with, if not already. And you're going to want to go ahead and you're going to want to add in those custom fields here. Now, the way you do it is you'd go ahead and you'd add a section here, and you'd scroll down, and you'll notice there's a field section within, there's a control object section, which you don't want. You want the field section. And you want to simply look for those custom fields. Now, when I look for it here, I don't see them, right? So the fields that I was creating was access person, first name and last name. They're not here. Well, why is that? That's because we haven't created the linked fields on the invoice table for those custom fields that we've created on the estimate. So let's go back to tables and fields. So again, we're on the invoice table. This is where we want to see those custom fields. We're going to create a new field. We're going to leverage that estimate dropdown that we saw on the invoice table. We're going to choose linked as the field type. And as you can see, it shows us a limited number of options here. It doesn't show us all the fields on the invoice table. It shows us only the drop-down field that we find on the invoice table. And as you can see, we see both the estimate drop-downs here, all right? So those two drop-down fields that we saw show up here. We're going to choose estimate record ID. And then it's saying linked field. So we want to specify exactly what we want to pull now from this relationship onto the screen, on the invoice screen. So we see here we have our access person first name. Great. Hit save and new. We're going to hit linked again, right? We're going to choose estimate again, right? We're going to do access person last name, save and new. Okay. Then we're going to do this a couple more times. Oh, estimate, access person email, save and new. So as you can see, you're not creating these fields from scratch. You're simply creating the linked fields by leveraging that drop-down field that we saw of the estimate record ID that we found on the invoice table, right? And then we're going to do access person phone. And lastly, we're going to do linked again. Go back to the estimate record ID dropdown, and we're going to pull the final field, which is access info. Hit save. Now, this is important. This is what I really want you to look at. After you've added those linked fields, they show up in a unique way within your tables and fields. And it's always going to be showing up like this for linked fields. And the way it shows up is, if we scroll down back, remember how it was only estimate and estimate record ID that was showing up? But now look, you have this arrow pointing down, and it's showing like an indent. And it basically shows you, hey, you got 5 linked fields that you've created based off of this dropdown. If we created it off of this estimate dropdown, these 5 linked fields would have shown underneath this dropdown field. But because we created using the estimate record ID dropdown field, they all show up and are indented underneath that particular field. So we see here, we can confirm, yes, our linked fields do show up here. Access info, access person first name, last name, phone, and email. These are all the linked fields that we've just created. Great. So now we've created those linked fields. But guess what? This info is not going to show up unless this dropdown is populated with the estimate record ID. We do not need to populate each single one of these. That's the beauty of linked fields. All you have to do is populate that relationship, that estimate record ID, and everything underneath it is going to show up for you automatically. And all you have to do is drag and drop on screen. All right? So to drive this home, if we go back now to our estimates, we open up our estimate. Now, this estimate record ID on the invoice table is most likely already being populated when we click the Create Invoice button. So let's go and check. We're going to go here. We're going to click create invoice. We're going to edit the actions. Okay. And as you can see, we're in our create invoice button logic. If we scroll down, we're going to look for an insert record and table. There it is. Insert new invoice. As you can see in the notes, this is exactly what we want to see. And we're going to double check to see if that relationship field, that estimate record ID field on the invoice is being populated. So scroll down. Let's look for it. Do we see it? Do we see it? Do we see it? Yeah, right there. This is the very last one right here. Estimate record ID, screen active record ID. So what it's doing here is when we're clicking the create invoice button on the estimate, it is taking the estimates record ID, the screen active record ID, because that's the screen that you're on. The estimate is the screen that you're on. So you're taking the record ID of the estimate and you're populating that drop-down field found on the invoice table with that estimate record ID, because that's what that drop-down is for, right? Great. That's all you need to do. You do not need to go ahead and now add in all the access info here, okay? As you can see here, and let me just refresh the screen, because I believe those linked fields, they won't even show up. They're not even available for you to insert in because they're not insertable fields. They're simply read-only fields that pull from that relationship dropdown, from that estimate record ID dropdown. So even if we wanted to insert into those fields, we can't. And I'm having a tough time finding this. Where is that insert record ID? Am I blind? There we go. Okay. Scrolling back down, I just hit refresh on the screen because I wanted to see if when we added those linked fields, sometimes you need to refresh to let the system give the system a chance to pick up those new fields. So if I choose access person, no, they're not here. So that just confirms to you that Method doesn't expect you to insert into these linked fields. These linked fields are already going to populate the relevant data or those particular fields just by you populating the relationship field that those linked fields extend from. Okay, so let's go back. I hope this helps you guys. I hope what I'm saying is crystal clear. So if we go now in here, right, we have these custom fields. What we want to do is we want to go to our invoice screen now. So this is our invoice, and I'm just going to hit save here. And I'm just going to show you, right? We're back on our invoice here, right? And we want to be able to go and customize this invoice screen, all right? And we want to go ahead and add in those linked fields. Now those linked fields should appear here because we just added them. There you go. And look, it starts off with estimate record ID, then the field name. That's because it's telling you these are the fields that we're pulling from a particular relationship form, which is the estimate record ID. So that is telling you exactly where it's pulling from. All we're going to do is we're going to drag and drop these on screen. Email, phone, and finally info. Now, there's another thing you have to just be aware of. With linked fields, it's not going to show you the caption. You can't show the caption. It's an output only field. So it's only going to show you the data value of those custom fields that we've stored or we've created on the estimate. So you still want to be able to put a caption above those data values. So that is something that you need to do. And what I mean by that is just to show you. If I hit close here, okay, let's go back into our estimate here. All right, and let's just go ahead and create an invoice. Look at that. The values that we have, garage code 1234, these all now appear automatically. I didn't have to create separate fields for them. These are all linked fields, and they're read-only. Linked fields will always only be read-only, all right? Now, this doesn't look nice. You want to be able to specify what these values are for. So let's go ahead and let's add the captions. Okay, so let me go here and let me insert a row. Let me just add a text field here. This is where you add in a control and not a field, right? Because this is just a label. and we're going to say access person first name. Okay, and we're going to make this bold. And we're just going to add a row in between each one. All right. So access person first name. And this, I believe, is the access person first name. So we're going to bring that up here. We're going to bring these all up one. Okay. We're going to duplicate this. And we're going to add a last name here. Right? Because that's what we put last after that. Then we're going to duplicate this. I believe what this one was is the email. I could be wrong. We're going to double check that in a second. All right. Then we're going to do phone. And then we're going to do access info. And we don't need access person here because it's just the access info. It's not the person's details. Okay. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add padding because these are all going to be squished together. So on the labels that I'm creating, I'm just adding top padding here so that they're not all squished together and it's easier to read. Okay. Let's say close. Let's see. Now we have access person first name, access person last name, access person email, access person phone, and access info. These are all fields that we pulled through the related estimate right here, right? This is all now showing up as linked fields, read-only fields on the invoice. And this is the related estimate details from the estimate that the invoice was generated from. So as you can see, this is how you would leverage linked fields. This, I hope, was a straightforward example to really drive home your understanding of when to use linked fields and the power of linked fields. You don't want to create duplicate fields on a separate table that you want to just copy over. You don't want to do that. You want to leverage linked fields where you're just populating the relationship dropdown to pull all the related information from that related table, which in this case is the estimate, to show up for you on screen here. That's it for today's video, guys. If you like this video, if it gave you a lot of value, please do me a favor, click like and subscribe down below. I try to release these videos at least once a week to help other business owners really get up to speed on customizing in Method CRM so that they can leverage the full true power of Method and to really help automate their business using Method CRM. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment down below, or you could email me at yusuf@craftingclouds.com or visit my website, www.craftingclouds.com. All that information will be in the description below in this video. Thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace!